Now, because this is a handyman and I can do this, I'm going to show you two different techniques that I use to clean these. Notice that I'm careful to hose so I'm not rounding that corner off. When you're doing this, be careful of that right there. Obviously, I don't think I'm going to save the paint on this. Again, it's paint. This isn't Japani. If we could save the Japani, I wouldn't have done that. Or I'd have been much more careful to not hit that upper edge. So, I don't know if you can see it, but the original grind marks are still there. We haven't pulled them out. We haven't worn them off. I didn't use too much pressure, and I've got a medium to fairly light wire wheel that's been well used. Well, guys, not sure what happened, but I realized I was talking away and my recorder had stopped, so let's try this again. If you watched my saw video, you know that I used a scraper, just a blade clamped to a pair of vice grips. So the other day I stopped and picked up this scraper. And you can see this has already been scraped, but basically I just scraped this off like this. And pretty much any kind of scraper will do. You find out which one you like best. The utility blades are a little bit stiffer. Not sure it matters. Also, I forgot to pick up some Simple Green that I usually use for this next process, so we'll just use this stuff I picked up on a dollar store. I'm not sure what it is. And here I'm using a hand block, but you can rest eraser, which again I didn't have any at the time, but you can pick them up. This is a little bit less invasive than the wire wheel. A little bit more elbow grease. I know you want to say, oh, just take it off and soak it, Don. No thanks. Although with this handyman, if I was just going to make it a user, I suppose it wouldn't matter. Now, if I really wanted to polish this up nice, I would take it over to the deburring wheel. If you don't have a deburring wheel, well, you can use sandpaper, although it's not recommended to use sandpaper if you're trying to save any of the patina or obviously the original finish on a hand plane. And again, there's many different ways to skin this cat. I'm just showing you the one that I typically use. I don't typically use this unless it's a more valuable plane. If I'm going to do a typical user, I just use the wire wheel. I think the wire wheel works just fine. As you saw in that video, it doesn't remove the original finish or the original grind marks if they're there. And with this process, it's a little harder to get into those deep crevices. But if you watch the saw video, which I recommend, it's the same process, except in that video we're using sandpaper simply because steel is much harder than this cast. So, and you can decide from here how much further you want to keep going until you get it to the shine you want. And you can also go to a very fine 320 grit sandpaper if you want to really polish it up more. That works as well. So as you can see, I went and I got my cardboard for my bench. Now we're going to do the inside of this thing. I'm probably going to wind up sandblasting and repainting this, but I don't know that yet because sometimes you can be very pleasantly surprised. So I'm just going to spray this with some WD-40 and give it a little rub. You can use the WD-40 for scraping the outside and sanding the outside as well, rather than use the cleaner. I just find the cleaner a little bit more, it doesn't smell quite as bad, and it's probably not as hard on your hands, although I guess I don't know that for sure. Actually, that paint looks better than I anticipated it was going to. I might just keep it. We can do a refinishing and repainting video some later time.
You do need to file up by the mailbox.
This was real Japanning. You can actually take a very fine wire wheel if this dirt and grime is extremely difficult. A fine wire wheel typically won't take the Japanning off. Again, don't do it on your $2,000 plane the first time you try it, but for something like this handyman or a regular user and you're not sure and you want to clean it up, it won't hurt to give it a try. If you're careful, you're not going to hurt it. I will probably wind up smoothing the inside of that mouth with a fine piece of sandpaper later on. I think that's going to be good enough for if I was restoring a valuable plane and it looked that good, I would definitely leave it just like that. So to deal with these edges right here, on a Stanley Bailey plane, they're flat, so I typically hit them with the deburring wheel. But since these aren't quite as flat, and probably not everyone has a deburring wheel, we'll just do this. It kind of gets rid of the rust, leaving some of the paint. And you notice that some of this has already come off, and that's okay. If it's going to come off, it's going to come off. And just keep going until you get that to exactly where you want it. I think that's okay for this one. I might hit it with the deburring wheel before I'm done, but I won't do that part there.